Welcome back to our generic crafting tutorial series. In this episode, we are going to be going over our equipment. So we're going to be able to equip items on the player and get those displayed inside of the UI. So we're going to need to open up our player, our inventory component, and our save game as well, because we're going to need to save whether or not the inventory has been, what equipment the player currently has. So we're going to need a little value in there. And we're also going to need to open up our inventory widget. That way we can see what items are equipped where. We are also going to need one more struct. And this is basically going to be the same thing as inventory info, except it's going to be equipment info. You can reuse inventory info if you want, but I decided to use equipment info. And that is just because instead of quantity here, it's going to be labeled as slot. And that distinction can be a little bit complicated if you're trying to reuse things. So I didn't want to overcomplicate that where I didn't really think it was possible, right? So we're going to have our item ID of name. We're going to have our slot, which is going to be an integer. And we're going to have our enhancement level, which is also going to be an integer. Okay, that's all we need to do here. And inside of our save, inside of our probably player inventory, I suppose, we're going to make our equipment struct, or our equipment array. Let's say equipment, and that is going to be an array of s equipment info. And that's just going to be right in the player inventory category. So we're also going to need a way to save that little function here. So probably like we have this set inventory here, we'll probably just make another one like that called set equipment. That way our save has a valid reference to the current player's equipment, and it goes ahead and saves that. So we're also going to put that in the player inventory category. That should be all we need to do in our save. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. So our inventory component is also going to need to load up the player's current equipment, right, on load. But we don't have a value for that yet, so we just have our inventory content and our overflow. We're going to go ahead and add equipment here as well. Same thing, an array of that equipment info structure. Helps if I actually click it. And I'm also going to put that in the inventory category. Just for now. Whoop. So back in our event graph, if you remember on begin play, we're going to see if we're using inventory size, right? If that is true, we're going to go ahead and just start loading up the game. If that's false, we're just going to use this giga huge number for our inventory size and load up the game. And that's where we load all of our inventory values from our player. And we check and make sure that our inventory size is big enough. But what we need to do here next is get equipment. And you can do that off of both of these if you want. I'm actually just going to do that beforehand. That way we don't have to route all that stuff over. I'm just going to set equipment right here. And that will work perfectly fine. We're also going to need a way to save, and I'm going to do that straight also from this inventory component. I'm going to do that when I save the player inventory. I'm actually just going to go ahead and save equipment as well. I'm going to call set equipment from that save game ref. And I'm just going to plug equipment right in there. Okay. So we need a way to equip items and unequip items, right? And we've talked about that throughout the series when we are doing our items. When we are like removing items from our inventory and discarding them. But we're going to start here in this widget, because when we click an item, when we're inspecting it, if it's equipment, this button is going to say equip, and that's going to send the signal to equip it. So we need to have an event here for our button equip use, which we don't have yet. And we're going to need to get the state of the widget, right, if this is an equip or use. And we're going to get that right from this focus tile. So we're going to get that focus tile out. And we are going to get the item info. And we need to see whether or not this is equipment or consumable. So we're going to break that. And we're going to get the item type. And we are going to, you can either switch or you can select. I went ahead and did equals here. Select might be better. Let's actually do a select. Oops, not a select, I'm sorry, a switch. So we can switch on item type. That way we just have a little bit cleaner of a graph. We're not running a bunch of excessive branches. So none isn't going to do anything. Material isn't going to do anything either. Get rid of that find result so we have a little more space here. Narrow down my details. But equipment and consumable are going to do two totally different things. For this video, we're going to work mostly on equipment, so we're just going to take off of this one and route it up here. That way we have some space. So basically we need a couple of interaction events from our BPI interface in order to tell the player kind of what is going on here. And we're also going to need something inside of our designer to switch between left hand and right hand, because we made a ring 1 and a ring 2. But if you remember correctly, when we made our enumerator for inventory, I know that was a little while ago, when we made our equipment slot, we only have one ring slot. So we need a way to determine which slot is actually coming out of this to be equipped on the player. So we're going to need to make a little widget thing in here as well. So if you were already going to have like a yes/no selector box, you might want to just go ahead and display your yes/no widget. I'm actually just going to take this whole, not the canvas panel, this whole main container. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it with a widget switcher. Make sure it's a variable. And I'm going to call this slot select switch, or switch select slot. And I'm just going to add a little horizontal box with a couple of buttons inside of it for the secondary container here. Add a button. Add some text onto that button. And I might want to wrap that in another horizontal box because I don't quite want that to be like that. Yeah, well, I guess that's fine. I'm not too worried about the cosmetics here. Again, in a more robust game, you're probably going to want to have like a yes/no widget that you'll end up using for basically the same thing here. It's going to have button left slot and button right slot. And button right slot. I'm just going to make the text left hand and right hand. Super Deluxe Jumbo. And left hand. So we also need to basically get the information out of this item ID to get which piece of equipment it is. So if you, just like we did with the get item type and all of this stuff in here, we're going to go into our item, and we're just going to get item, or get equipment type, and that is going to give us our equipment type. But I don't actually think I need a reference to my equipment type anywhere. Well, we can just chain them anyway. I won't make this too complicated. Right? I don't want to overcomplicate it. So we're going to get equipment type as index as well. Okay, get equipment type as index as well. And we're going to add, of course, equipment type as the main parameter. So in type, we don't need item ID, and we're just going to return an integer as index, and we're going to run a selector here to select that index. Run that straight into the return, and the in type in here, narrow it up a little bit. And this is just going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or you can make them whatever you want here. But I just did 0 for none and 0 for main weapon. A little bit easier for me, I suppose, because when we come into our inventory later, we're going to have to go ahead and assign the array for all of these slots. That's all we need to do here. So inside of our inventory, we're going to go ahead and get those. So get equipment type as index. And if this index is equal to 8, which is the ring, we need to delay, I'm sorry, not delay. If that index is equal to 8, which is the ring, we need to go ahead and display that widget switcher, right? We need to display if it's left slot or right slot. So I'm going to get my select switch, and I'm going to set the active widget index to 1. And that's all we're going to do off of the true. Off of the false, we're actually going to run the interaction event to tell the player to try to equip this. But real quick, I want to grab my buttons out before I throw them in their categories and lose track of them. So I'm going to get those out, and I'm going to throw them into their button categories. Buttons. And you're going to be switcher. And these buttons are basically going to do the same thing. So we're going to take this switch, and we're going to set the active widget index back to 0. And then we're going to call the BPI we're about to make. So I'm going to put those right over here for now and give myself a little bit of space. Okay, so now we need a way to actually tell, now we need a way to actually tell the player to put this equipment on, right? So we're going to go into our interface and do that. And since we're going to do use items here as well, I'm just going to go ahead and add both of these, probably into the inventory category, right? Seems like a good place for them. So we're going to say I use item and I equip item. I use item is just going to take in the item to use, which is also going to be this inventory info, so item to use. And equip item is going to take in item to equip. But it's also going to need to know which slot we are equipping that in. Okay, so we're going to add the integer here for I equip item. We're just going to say which slot, so slot. And that's all we need to do in here. We're going to set those up inside the player. And I should be done with both of these as well. So we'll go ahead and close those out. So now inside of our inventory, we need to get our player. And we need to say, I equip item. Off of the false, we can just go ahead and equip it. Get the slot as index because we know that it's not this double slot, right? We know that it's not ring for 8. And if you're doing, like, instead of an offhand weapon, if you're doing dual wielding or two-handed, you're going to need a little bit more logic in here. But it's more or less going to be the same concept. And I'm going to get this item info for my focus tile. I'm going to do that. And then we're going to need a custom event to actually refresh the equipment, which I actually already made apparently. Oh yeah, that's right. We made it and just left it empty. So if you didn't make this, go ahead and make it. It's just a little custom event that's totally empty. That is refresh equipment, and this is going to refresh the UI. That way the equipment that we just set is being properly displayed. If you want to save here, you can as well. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and save here as well. So we'll just delay a tick. And we will call for I trigger save. That way we are all saved up and ready to go before we refresh our equipment. Now since we didn't destroy an item, right, or remove an item from our inventory, we don't actually need to refresh this entire widget. But that's going to be different off of consumable. And since consumable is pretty easy, I'm just going to go ahead and make that now. Even though we might not be dealing with it too much in this episode. That's just going to take the player. trigger the IUse item, and pass in that item from the focus tile. That's all it's really got to do here. Whoops, if I can actually grab the tiles. That's all it's got to do here. I'm going to delay until next tick. Grab the player, and I trigger save. And then we're going to refresh. Whoops, not equipment. Reset, sorry, the widget. Remember what I call things. And that's also going to pass player right back in. That way it properly removes the item from our inventory. And if you're not resetting the widget, you're doing something else. You have an internal inventory value, right? Maybe you're using this internal value and saving when you exit the widget. You're going to want to handle that however you've decided. But for me, I'm just resetting the entire widget. It's a little bit simpler. That is use item. We're not going to do anything else off of there. And before we leave, let's make sure that we actually handle this true. So this is a ring slot. We want to make sure that we set the equipment value here as well. So we're going to grab all this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it up here. And I didn't grab my focus tile. I'm going to need that. And this is basically going to do the exact same thing off of the switch 1 and off of the switch 2. Except, instead of this slot being 8 on the switch left, it's going to be 9 on the switch 2. That is the only difference we're really going to make here. So you could just make a bool here and select if you wanted to. Totally up to you what you do. To keep it simple, I'm just going to say 8 and 9. Because 9 is going to be the 10th index slot, and that's going to be for the right-handed ring, and 8 is going to be for the left-handed ring. And that should be good. That should be all we need to do for these equip item functions. And that's going to handle equip and use. So I'm going to make a little bit more space and comment that. Equip, use, item. And the last thing we need to do in here is actually build out this refresh equipment function, which should already be getting called throughout our widget. I'm sure I probably put the logic in there as we were building it in here. Yep, we did. So we refresh the equipment off of reset. That way when we open up the widget, we are properly refreshing. I'm going to build that out up here, and we need to get player. Whoops, I'm just going to drag player in. And we need, my bad, we need another interface event here. We need to get the current player's equipment, right? I totally flubbed that. So we need another getter here, and this is going to be iGetPlayer equipment. So I'll just duplicate that one. And we'll call this iGetPlayer equipment. And that is going to get the array of equipment that the player currently has equipped. Make sure we call that player equipment so we don't get confused. And that's all we need to do here. We're going to set that up inside the player in just a minute. Whoop. So when we refresh our equipment, we're going to go ahead and iGetPlayer equipment. We have a valid reference to our currently equipped items. I'm going to run each through a loop, because we're going to need to break them. And we're going to need to use this item ID to determine whether or not we have an item equipped in that slot. If we do not have an item equipped in that slot, we need to do something different, right? So I'm going to take all this and once again remove these finders. I don't know why that keeps popping up. But basically we're going to take a set text here. So let me just get some text out. And this text is going to be, that's still labeled items required, huh? Whoop. So instead of items required, these are actually going to be called inventory. And these are going to be set up in the exact same way that we're about to set up this array. So this array is going to be hard set with 0 values. And you'll see that in just a second. But this is going to be set up the exact same way. So we need to get all these out and make sure that we assign them the proper values. Weapon main, weapon off, head, chest, guards, legs, boots, neck, ring over here. Main, off, head, chest, guards, legs, boots, neck, ring. So again, important here just to make sure that these are all going to be in the same way that we have the arrays all set up. Move all of those over. And we're going to set text like we did in a previous episode. And break off this pin. And we're going to say select. And we're going to use this array index here to select. And we're just going to add pins up until 9. And put these all in their respective pins. I'm actually going to duplicate this set text and put it up here. This is something I noticed when I was testing mine. Even if this item ID is empty, for some reason the text wasn't properly resetting. So for both of these, if it's true or if it's false, we're going to set the text. But off of the true here, meaning we don't have anything equipped in that item slot, that's just going to make sure that the text is blank so we're not having just some kind of non-relevant text value or a text value from another item. And off of here, we need to get the display name. And we also need to append that. So we're going to append, we're going to add a little space EX colon or EX, whatever you want. I'm just going to add EX space. No, I'm going to add EX colon space. I like the colon space. And then we're going to put that enhancement level down in there. That way we kind of have some idea of what item we have equipped, right? And put that in the text. That's all we really need to do here. So we are just looping through the player's current inventory to get the item ID. If we don't have an item equipped there, that's going to be blank. So our true is going to be blank. If we do have an item equipped there, then we're going to get its display name, append it to the enhancement level, and go ahead and set the text appropriately. Grab all this stuff. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to comment it. Refresh the equipment loadout, or whatever you want to call it. And that should be all we need to do inside of our inventory widget here. So let's make sure that we actually set these values in our player before we forget. Okay, so we just made I get player equipment. So we need to drag out of our inventory manager. We need to get equipment and plug that right in. And we also made two new triggers, so I use item and I equip item. We're going to build those out inside of the inventory component in just a moment. So I'm just going to comment that with red so I don't lose it. The first thing we need to do here is make sure that we set up this equipment array. So go ahead and add your array pins for every equipment slot that you have. I believe I did 9, 10. Slot 0, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3. I guess this slot really isn't necessary. It's just kind of a way to help us visualize. I guess maybe it'll come in handy later on to make sure that we're not duplicating slots, right? If you want to run a secondary check on that. I just thought it was a little helpful to visualize which slot it is in, right, based on the index. So now we need to add all of our functionality, all of our custom functions here for our equipment. So I'm going to add a new function called Equip Item. Equip Item is going to need to take in an inventory info. And a slot. Item. And slot. Whatever you want to call them. I'm going to break that open. We're going to get our equipment here. We're going to set array element. I'm going to use slot as the index. So I'm just going to get slot. That way it's a little bit cleaner. So we're going to use our slot input to determine which index this is. And for our item, we're going to go ahead and make this our item ID, our enhancement level. I'm just going to get slot again and use that to set this slot properly. So I'm going to put this in the category of equipment. And we're going to need a couple other functions inside of equipment. So I'm going to add another new one. And this is going to be called isItem equipped. And we'll use this in a few different places. I don't think I made it, right? I just made the little comments everywhere that we were going to need it. So isItem equipped is going to take in an item, so inventory info, the item in question. I'm going to break that open. We're going to get the equipment type. The first thing we need to check here is we need a branch to check and see if this is equal to none. Because if this item does not have an equipment type, then it's not equipped, right? We're going to be running this inside of drop item to make sure that when we drop items, we properly unequip them. Why did that go down there? So off of this branch, we're going to go ahead and return. And our return node is going to be a boolean and an index. So b equip and slot. And that's just going to be false 0. So for the rest of this functionality, we need to run a for each with break on equipment. And we're going to break this open. We're also going to get our item and break that open as well. So get item. And break that open. Because we need to check and see if the item ID and the enhancement level are the same. That's kind of how we're going to determine if the item is equipped. So and. Now you could always get the slot and make sure that the slot index is the same here, but I found that item ID and enhancement level, I found that item ID and enhancement level. If both of these are the same, you've probably got the item equipped. And if not, I guess that's just something you can kind of figure out on your own. Because slot's not going to make a huge difference in the case that you have, say, 2 bronze swords. And you want to make sure that like one enhancement level bronze sword is equipped over the other enhancement level bronze sword. But I don't think that's really going to matter too much in very many use cases. Maybe in a use case where you have durability reduced on one. But even then, when you remake your inventory, right, and you save all your durability values, it doesn't actually matter which one has that durability loss on it. So you're just gonna, that's something you're gonna have to kind of deal with if you need it for that specific use case. So I'm going to promote this here to the local slot variable, because we're going to need to check some things. So this is local slot, and we're going to get local equipped as well, just because. And we're going to set that to true and go ahead and break our loop, because we don't need to keep looping. We already found the exact equal match. And then we're going to return those local indexes. So if we loop through this entire body, we never found anything in it completed, this is just going to be false, and we'll make this like -1. And I guess we'll return -1 up here as well. You don't necessarily need equipped boolean if you're returning -1. Again, I just kind of like returning booleans. It's a little bit simpler than always checking if it's -1. Totally a personal preference, but you do need to return the slot. That way you know which slot it's equipped at. Unequip Item is going to be the next one. We're just going to make another function. And this is for if we are dropping an item. When we drop an item, if the item is equipped, we're going to unequip it. And that's why we need that slot. And all we're going to do here is take our equipment array, just like we did when we equipped the item. We're going to set the array element of that index to nothing, right? To nothing. So you can say none, or you can just leave it blank. Up to you either way. And that's something you're going to want to decide when you're doing your inventory here. If you remember correctly, this check up here is going to check if it's blank. So you could also check if it's blank or, right, or if it is equal to none. Just to be doubly sure that you're kind of getting a valid check here. But that's all we're going to do here, is just set the array index to none. Nothing is equipped there. And we need one more for equipment. And this is going to be called validate equipment. And this is going to be something that you run when you are basically starting the game or removing items. Or when you're loading up your equipment, I should say. So we're going to say S equipment. Whoops. If I can type. It's going to be our equipment info. So, and we are going to run through our inventory content. We're going to do our find exact item. And just make sure that we do have this equipment, right? We do have this actually in our inventory. So we're going to break that open. And we're going to make this. And we're going to do slot enhancement level. Since this is only for equipment, quantity doesn't really matter. We're going to say 1 because it's going to check that quantity anyway. But just make sure we set that to 1. And if this is greater than or equal to 0, we are going to return whatever that is, true or false. And this is basically just, again, making sure that the item exists inside of your inventory. It's just a validation. And we're going to drop all these in equipment. Whoops, not enhancement. Equipment. And I want to do one more thing here. And this is going to be for the consumables. So we're going to add another function here. And this is just going to be called use item. Since we went ahead and did all that stuff. And all this is actually going to do is remove from inventory. And we're just going to pass the item info straight in. And that is all we are going to do here for that. I'm going to put this in a consumables category. And you're going to want to run whatever logic is actually happening off of this item, right? Maybe you used a buff item, maybe you used a healing item. You're going to want to run that logic in your player or in a different component altogether. That's not really something you need to run in the inventory, at least not in my opinion. That's why we're just removing it from the inventory. So here, I use item. Again, this is where you would want to take your character and you would want to say, like, maybe make another data table entirely, but I would get stats. I should say, since we didn't do that, get data, table row of item soft. Or you could make a consumables data table and just have extra information in there about all of your consumables. But I would basically just say stats, right? If I can find it, stats. And I would run these through some kind of logic to check and see which stat is which and what the consumable is doing to adjust your player stats. But that's not really what this tutorial is about, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to take our inventory component and remove it. Whoops. I should say use item, not remove it. And I'm going to print a little message in our message log that says we used the item. So I'm going to break this real quick. I'm going to get the display name. And I'm going to add an event log. Just to say that I used the item. Drag that out and format it. I'm just going to say XZ whatever item That way I know that I used the item. So I'm going to take all that. Actually, I'm going to take all of this. I'll just write it up here and put it with the rest of my interface events. We're just about done with this tutorial series, so I'm going to go ahead and clean these up at the end. And Unequip Item is going to more or less do the same thing. We're going to take our inventory, and we're just going to equip item. That's all we really need to do here. If you're, again, doing with the stats, you want to get that data table and have it run through your stat manager, you'd probably want to call something in your player like refresh stats. That way you're getting valid stats when you equip an item. Put that over there. And now we need to make sure that inside of our inventory component, that stuff is actually firing off, right? All those events we just made. So inside of our set equipment, we are going to first validate. Whoops, I should say up here. Oh, that's why I did that last. I remember now. Because I run a for each on this. So yeah, I am going to do that after I branch for inventory size. I'll put that down there. And we're going to take this. And we're going to for each loop. That way, instead of just setting our equipment like this, I'm actually just going to equip the item after I validate it. Totally up to you if you want to do this or not. But this is just a little check that makes sure that we still have the valid items in our inventory before we equip them. Let's say, whoops, say equip item, and make that. Actually, I'm not going to do that. We'll just set the this and then we'll validate it. And then if it is not valid, we'll just unequip it. Boop. Boop. That's not what I wanted. From the item slot. Or I suppose you could use array index here as well. Array index might actually be better, because that's always going to be the same index. So that's just a way that you could use your validate equipment there, and I think I am going to go ahead and do that. One more thing we need to do before we can get started here is take our equipment, and we need to make sure that we copy this and pasta it in our save, where we made that equipment array in our save. I totally spaced and forgot to do that. So the defaults for our equipment should always be basically set up to be this proper array structure. Otherwise, we might have a little bit of issue when we're loading our equipment up for the first time. I should say. A little bit of issue with that. I believe it was drop item was the one. Need unequip item, yeah. So, and we decided when we save our inventory, right, we're already saving the that. So equipment is item equipped. Technically, I think this could be pure here. I don't see any reason for it not to be pure, so we're going to make it pure. Is item equipped. It's going to be our drop item. Get drop item. Item. If it is equipped, we're going to make sure that we unequip item from that slot. If it's not equipped, we can just go ahead and pass that right on through. That way when we drop items, and probably when we remove them from our inventory, yep, is equipped, and when we remove them from our inventory, we're going to do the same thing. If that's true, delete that. Unequip item. That way we don't have lingering items. And this should reduce the need for validation. But just a little helpful tidbit there. Because otherwise, when we remove an item from our inventory, it's not going to do anything. There's one more thing I noticed when I was testing my other version of this, is that when we enhance an item, We should probably check and see if it is equipped, because probably after this for each here, right? We should see if the item is equipped at some point anyway. So, yes, that was item info. So let's say is item equipped, get item info. And I don't think we need to, yeah, because we're just setting that array element. We're not getting an index or anything like that. Is item equipped, branch. And if that is true, we need to make sure that we equip, basically unequip and equip the item. But equip should work just fine. And we will make that, we'll plug that right into the slot. And instead of doing a bunch of complicated gobbledygook, we will just do that, and we'll just say +1. Since we know that we properly enhanced the item, we'll just make sure that we equip it. And actually that is going to be way up here, not down here. My bad. Let's make sure that is off of when you set the array element. So this is basically saying when you enhance an item, if you don't do this, then the same EX5 sword is going to display as your equipped item, instead of the now EX6 sword. So this is just like a slight cosmetic thing. If that's true, or if it's false, because we still need to remove the item from the inventory. So something like that would work. And you might want to break this up into maybe a separate function. It's kind of ugly, I know. Kind of cobbled that together at the end. But you know, I think that's probably fine. I've had uglier functions. And that should be working out just fine. So let me make sure real quick. Yes, we did that. Yes, we set everything up in our widget. Yes, we set everything up in our save. So we should be good to go ahead and test this. I'm going to make sure I save up. I probably should have actually grabbed some items. What do I have in my inventory? I have a bunch of nonsense in my inventory. That's what I have. I'm going to drop all this nonsense off at the bank, since I might need it later. Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's one more thing we're going to do at some point, is add a 0. That way I don't have to completely exit the vendor when I accidentally hit max. Because that's pretty annoying, right? Why do I have so many chicken meals? Let's make sure we keep 1 chicken meal. Actually, let's make sure we keep like 3. That way we can test use item as well. I'm going to drop the rest of this crap off. Jeez, I had a lot of stuff. And yeah, we'll keep like 3 health potions as well. Store all of those. Grab my iron sword, withdraw that. Let's get rid of these eggs. And you know what? I'm only going to keep like 10 enhancement cores. I don't need 999. I'm going to store all those. Quit the bank. And let's go ahead and try to buy some gear. So we know we have a sword. We need a helm. So we'll buy a helmet. I'm just going to make sure that we have all of our equipment, right? Ready to go. This is offhand, so I'll just buy an arrow for the offhand. You know, it's a little weird, I know. Let's see, we got guards, sleeves. I'll buy both of those. Holy, 12 million? Why did I make that 12 million? I don't have 12 million gold. There we go, we can do 4 million. Can't do 12 million. Come on now. And we're going to grab a ring and a necklace. Maybe he doesn't actually have rings. I don't know why rings are broken. We're going to have to figure out why rings are broken. Yeah, that's no good, man. That's no good. We're going to have to figure out why that's broken. Anyway, now when I go ahead and equip these items, we see that the equipment is now empty. That's because we're checking properly to see if we have it. So we're going to go ahead and equip our helm, right? We're going to equip our sword. We're going to equip our arrow. equip our sleeves, equip our necklace, right? Equip our guards. Sleeves and guards actually the same thing. They are actually the same thing. So yeah, we see that that's all updating properly. Let's go ahead and enhance our sword. Our sword from the vendor is EX0 though. Oh, that's right. I just picked up a bunch of random swords. Let's gather some iron ore. Let's just make some stuff real quick. We'll make the remaining slots. And I'll actually get rid of this sword since it's EX0 for some reason. Get rid of that. See, I removed it from my inventory. That's great. Use our smithing bench so we can make another one. Refine. Let's say equipment. We want to make a sword. And I believe we want to make a breastplate. Let's go ahead and check. We have our breastplate. Equip. We have our sword. Equip. What else do I need? I need legs and I need boots. So I'm actually going to need another block of iron. Yeah, I should be able to use silver by now. Yeah, it's only 10 silver. We want 500. We don't want to spend all day harvesting, right? We're going to come back over here. Refine those again. Go to our equipment. Let's see, clodhoppers or boots. And I think I said leg plates. I'll go with a pair of steel leg plates. Why not? And just make sure we have everything equipped. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the only thing we're missing now is rings. So I'm going to have to figure out why that vendor doesn't have any rings. Might be an issue with the data table, right? I'll figure that out in a minute. First, I want to go ahead and enhance this sword. So we use EX1, max that out. Just to kind of make sure that last little bit, okay, yep, that last little bit of logic is working. It's now an EX2 in our inventory. So that is great, right? All hunky-dory there. Go to our objects, NPCs, data table for our vendors. Figure out why this guy doesn't have any rings. Item ID 3000, quantity 0. Now that makes sense. That's why he doesn't have any rings. Let's go ahead and make that quantity 5. And he has 5 rings. And I did set those up to 10 minutes, so they're probably not going to be restocked yet. So instead of waiting around for him to restock, I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to use my little key here. 1 key. Go ahead and add 2 of those to my inventory. Add enhancement level 1. That would be why the swords weren't working. Delete those. Now when I press 1, hopefully it'll give me rings. I think it was rings. It was rings! So equip item. Okay, good. That gave us left hand, right hand. I'm going to equip on the left hand. I'm going to equip on the right hand. So we also might want to be able to find a way to see, like, is item equipped? Because I could see us running into some problems with rings. Basically just with rings. Already being equipped or not being equipped. But that's kind of another little detail that we'd have to get into. So let's go ahead and make sure we can actually use our chicken meal as well. Use item. Okay, chicken meal used. But it looks like it used all of my chicken meals. And I don't want that, right? Yeah, so we messed something up there. You probably caught it. I think I already know exactly what it is. In our use item. Yeah, we just sent the item info straight in. And removed it from the inventory. We need to go ahead and break this open. And make sure that we are only removing 1 from our inventory. Or, which I'll probably actually do instead of this, is when we use the item here in our player. So our input action for use item. We'll probably go ahead and make this 1. Or even better yet, actually, we'll just do that in the inventory. So when we call use item down here, the focus tile is getting that exact item information. So we would just want to go ahead and make this only use 1 instead of using the whole thing. I know we went kind of fast there. So instead of passing the entire item struct, we're just going to pass a quantity of 1. That way we can just go ahead and pass this right on through. It won't matter, we're only using 1. Now when I press play and I use my health potion, should only be using 1. So yeah, 2, 1, that's great. If I open up my storage chest here, and I have a crap load of iron swords. I think this is actually full of iron swords. I don't remember why I did that, but I did. If we go over here to our little guy here, let's go ahead and deposit this stuff. And we'll just go ahead and store all those items. And hopefully, yeah, that updated our player properly, and everything is good to go. So that is our equipment, right? Now we have our equipment properly displaying inside of our UI. So yeah, that is the bulkhead of our generic crafting tutorial series. I know we ended on equipment, which is a little bit weird. We are going to do a few bonus episodes in here of just kind of cleaning things up and maybe some other ways that you could run things if you wanted to. But for the most part, right, we have our entire video tutorial series here. So you go to the item, you pick up the item, you gather it if you have the gathering class, right? If you don't have the gathering class, you're not going to be able to gather it. We can pick up classes over here. We can trade with our vendors over here to get materials we need. And we can use our crafting benches to craft items, which removes the materials, gives us some XP, and removes the items, right? We also have these storage chests in here. So aside from a few small tweaks and bugs, which we're going to do in bonus videos, that is the tutorial series. If you've watched this all the way to the end, thank you. I appreciate it. So if you have any questions or remarks or anything you want to see added to this tutorial series, go ahead and let me know down in the comments section, and I'll try to get to you, and we'll see if we can maybe enhance this a little bit more. I know it's a little janky, a little fast-paced, but it does the basic thing we want it to do. It picks up the item, it crafts the item, and it stores the item, it buys the item, it sells the item, it has the bank, it has the crafting classes, it has the XP. So, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial series. I appreciate you watching all the way until the end, and I'm looking forward to making some bonus videos on extra little things we can do here to make it all the more better. If you're enjoying the videos so far, I urge you to join our Patreon. For just $3 a month, you'll get access to all of the videos in this series as soon as I create them. Always available on Patreon, always free, and ready to go. You'll also get a copy of the example project so you can follow along step by step with a real visual guide in the project.